Take it away, Tom Merritt. Who's ready to get spoiled?
Hey, it's spoilerin time, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready to be spoiled like a baby? Because we're going to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy again, because we saw it twice. So we're going to have a quick conversation about that. Then The Shield, episodes 12 and 13 of season 2. The Leftovers, episode 6. Snowpiercer, and a little bit about Europa Report. Lamarr Wilson had to leave because he hasn't seen Guardians of the Galaxy, but he's going to be back in a little bit. And Scott Johnson is joining us as well.
Hi.
Oh, I'm so very excited about this. What an awesome hodgepodge mishmash of it's a collage. It's a veritable collage of joy and pain. Let's start with Guardians of the Galaxy, where I mentioned this in the pre-show. I don't know if it's the fact that I got to watch my kids watch a PG-13 movie, or if it's the fact that I only had an hour and a half of sleep after staying up late doing the epilepsy charity and then waking up early in the morning and not sleeping on the plane and landing or whatever. But there was something gorgeous and beautiful and magical about watching this movie the second time. I didn't see the flaws nearly as much. Every time one of my favorite moments and lines came up, I snuck a glance over to watch it. My 6-year-old and my 10-year-old and my wife get blown away by it. I cried I cried the whole stupid movie long. I cried for the pure joy of what it means to be with your family, and I cried for all the loss and love, and for how wonderful that truly delightful art can still be made nowadays. It was better the second time, and I can't remember the last time that's happened in a movie like this.
I missed you watching Guardians of the Galaxy the second time, and I actually really enjoyed it the second time through, but I can't say that it was better the second time through. The second time through for me, I seriously was missing you laughing at all of the stuff next to me, and that sort of engagement. And I think your experience says a lot of like where you are in your life and who you're seeing it with. And I think that's important for this kind of movie, because for me, I was like, okay, the first part of this movie is a little slower now that I know everybody and I'm just trying to get through stuff. But the big cool moments were still stellar. The opening dance scene where he's dancing around on the empty planet with Redbone was amazing. The lines from Drax, even knowing they're coming, made me laugh again. And so I'm not disappointed at all. I loved it.
Scott, what about you? Have you only seen it the once?
I've seen it the one time. We're working on the next time we're going to go. But I keep coming back to a moment in that movie that I want to express here that I just think is it was powerful enough at the time that it actually made me want to turn to my wife and explain why I was feeling the way I was feeling, and then couldn't. And she's like, "Shh, tell me after the movie." Movie ends. I turn to explain this moment, and I actually start crying in front of my wife.
Yes.
And when I explained this to her, and here was the moment. There was a moment in that movie. It's a spoiler thing, so here's a spoiler. When they are all going to crash and die, if not for the quick thinking and understanding of Groot, who decides to envelop everybody into this big sort of wooden tree ball and protect them so that they would not perish, but he would sacrifice himself instead. And knowing that that character is voiced by Vin Diesel, and knowing that he voiced the character of the Iron Giant in The Iron Giant.
Yes.
And knowing that there was a moment in that movie when he went straight toward a falling nuke and looked at it, and how he took courage was to remember the name Superman as he flew into it. And to know that when they did that scene, that they had A, the voice actor, B, his voice acting director is in studio with him from that movie from 99 when he did The Iron Giant. Nobody knows this, but it's a weird little fact. All those things playing into a moment where he says, "We are Groot," and does it in almost the same cadence and voice. His head moves up, the light kind of comes on where the impact happens, and it washes out the screen. It was beat for beat taken from that movie, and what it said to me is I was not alone in my universal, unapologetic love for the Iron Giant and the effect it had on me when I saw it in 1999.
And here's the thing also, the Iron Giant was not just a tragedy. It was a tragedy of the box office. It was one of the best movies of the 90s, for sure. and yet was undermarketed. It was mismarketed, and it did poorly. And it almost cost us the national treasure that is Brad Bird. Brad Bird, when he came back and did The Incredibles, it was like a giant, fist up the butt of the world. Like, see, that's what you missed. This is what he gave us with the Iron Giant. And it's great to kind of see echoes of that with Vin Diesel. And yes, it's like, how much can you emote having exactly 3 words in your vocabulary?
Yeah.
But it was
they completely remade that scene in this just loving tribute that it wasn't just like, hey, we loved Iron Giant, so here's this moment. We're just going to sneak this in like a little Easter egg or whatever. It kind of works on that level, but there's so much more to it. It's also a statement, and the statement is this: Warner Brothers, aka DC, you are not treating Superman properly. We are now reliant on Marvel and other things to better understand the character of Superman and what he means and what truth and justice and protecting your friends actually means. And this movie knew that above all other things, and it just overwhelmed me. And some people say, you're overplaying it. Not me, dude. I feel like that was a moment
dude,
I saw
an amazing podcast where somebody was on there. I believe it was called Padres Corner, where somebody was talking about what an amazing trick Marvel pulled by taking what essentially was their B Brigade underneath the X-Men, underneath the Avengers was like a 3rd or 4th place franchise, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, no, it was you, Scott Johnson. That's who I was listening to.
Yeah, it was a really palpable thing, and when I saw it, I was kind of gasping for air. I couldn't believe it was happening. When I explained to my wife, I lost it and started tearing up. And my kids were like, "Is he okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to be fine." But there's something special about what makes Superman great, and there's something even more special about Marvel figuring that out and making better Supermen in the form of Captain America.
It boils down to heart.
Like Groot. Yeah, the heart of it. That is, you know what? You just said it. That's the word. For whatever reason, and it may ebb and flow, and one day they may suck at this, but for right now, Marvel gets the heart of this stuff. Well, and the heart of it is what matters.
And they're able to sell stuff that on paper, there's no reason this movie should have worked. There's no reason I should have believed in it. The Avengers worked. Oh, yeah, there's clever writing or whatever. But also they spent 15 years training me on these characters and their backgrounds and situations to all come together at this moment. This on paper, like, we'll throw like, I don't know, 5 new characters. Also, the guy who did Slither. And somehow you'll like it. Probably. I don't know. I was like, no, that's not going to work.
No, these are risky, dangerous things. I was talking to Justin Robert Young in our spoiler cast about it, and he made a really good point about how really, truly avant-garde it is to hire the kinds of directors they are. We all loved Joss Whedon before he got the job at Avengers.
Sure.
But in a mainstream way, nobody knows him from Jack. You say, well, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Oh, that weird show I never watched on when it was on or whatever. That may not be us, but that's other people, and he came in there and nailed it. All of these guys they're hiring, and in some degree who they're hiring for the Star Wars movies, hiring the director of Brick, Rian Johnson, to come in there, is a very risky, weird thing. But they have now proven to me about 12 times that they know what they're doing, and I'm not worried.
Yeah,
and it's great. But I'm terrified about DC stuff, and I want that to be great too. Why am I terrified? Because they haven't earned it yet.
DC is going to have a reorganization. They're going to figure out that they can't. First of all, don't cry too hard for DC. DC enjoyed a 20-year monopoly on superhero movies during my entire youth. Marvel is enjoying its comeback period, and it's a pendulum. It'll go back and forth. There'll be something great that comes out of DC. I'm not worried about it. But at any rate, I'm so glad that you enjoyed it as much as I did in the same way.
Loved it. I was 12 years old for about 2 hours, and it was the greatest 12-year-old 2 hours I've had since maybe Star Wars when I was 8.
I have been walking around playing the soundtrack.
You've been living in Motown for the last week.
Well, that specific early 70s sound that James Gunn totally identified. And apparently, I don't know if we mentioned this last week, but he listened to hundreds of songs from the top hits of the 70s constantly. And like certain songs he would grab and write scenes for. And say, we're going to do a scene to this music. And he really narrowed it down. He wanted to have ELO's It's a Livin' thing in there. And if you listen to that song, you're like, yep, that would totally fit right in. Like, he identified a sound And it's not just Motown. There's a Motown bit to it. There's an early 70s adult contemporary AM radio sort of feel to it. And in that feeling is the feeling of the movie. It's that sort of sentimental, happy, dancing around kind of feel. And it's amazing that
Justin had this funny notion that suddenly a bunch of dead musicians' kids who aren't really all that big a deal are going to suddenly be getting royalty checks they never expected in the mail because
oh my god, in a huge way,
the top 20.
Dude, yeah. I when we did Cordkillers last week, I showed up and all of a sudden the soundtrack was on, and I was like, aha, I know what's going on here.
Yeah, amazing.
All right, should we call Lamarr back in?
Yeah.
Lamarr, it's safe to come down.
Are you going to talk about Snowpiercer now?
Have you watched it yet?
I haven't yet. I want to bad.
By the way, Snowpiercer, for the record, is one of the greatest video-on-demand, day-and-date release stories in the history of the last 20 years or whatever.
But is it also simultaneously one of the worst? Why we couldn't get this into theaters when we wanted to, and as broadly as we wanted to. Stories.
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this much. Here's the thing about Snowpiercer. And we'll get back to this because we got to talk with Lamarr, but spoiler alert, on the small screen, being a small direct video on demand release, Jason Murphy nailed it for me. He said, go into it thinking of a Twilight Zone episode, and I think you'll love it. And I did. However, if they had done a major widescreen release, they would have had to spend $30 million, and there's no way you could spend twice the production budget and tell people, think of it as a Twilight Zone episode and it'll be a great time. Like, you can't do that. You have to sell it as an epic reality, the truth of global warming. Only in the future, man lives on trains. It's like, and by keeping it small and not spending all that money, they avoided all that.
Well, good on them, because regardless, it feels like it's in the right place. It feels like it's in the place it's supposed to be, and everybody's flipping out about it. And I don't know why I haven't seen it yet. It's kind of on me.
I mean, look, again, it's not again. I'm not gonna say it's the best movie ever. I'm not gonna say it's the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm not even gonna say it's an Iron Man 2. I'm gonna say that it's a Twilight Zone episode, and it's a really, really good Twilight Zone episode about how crazy people got on a train, and 100 years later, they're still on a train.
I never thought of it as a Twilight Zone episode, but that might be a good example of it. I found it to be quite amazing of a movie. Like, I really got into the story about 100 years later, this happening in life. I mean, growing up in that tight circumstance of a train, just imagining, how the people dealt with it and got the different classes the further up you go. It was just more intriguing to me than anything. But Twilight Zone, I guess, like, there's definitely some parts where it gets really, really wonky, and it's like, okay, that was a little silly.
Oh my God! But that chick's teeth stole the show.
Yeah, I was trying to think of her name.
Yeah, no, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Also,
I feel bad.
train
You guys
car
should be able
full
to
of
spoil
people
this.
with
I think I'll
hoods
go
over
so
their
you
eyes
can.
and holding axes.
Yeah. All right. Get out of here, Scott Johnson. We love you. Everyone, check out the Frog Pants Network.
See you later, everybody.
All right, he's out just like that. Sorry, what were you saying?
The train car full of people with hoods over their eyes and axes. That's when I knew this was not just an intriguing sci-fi premise movie. This is also trying to be an art film. And I'm fine with that. That's not a criticism from my perspective.
Right.
This was a movie that was beautifully shot. The sets are exquisite.
Yes.
You just love being in that world. And if you're looking for a science fiction story, you're not going to get one. And I think that's pretty good advice. I wish I had heard that about, think of it as a Twilight Zone episode going in, because it is about, the overriding theme that they're exploring more than some coherent story.
Well, and it's amazing to me too, because this was this was a Korean production shot in Poland or the Ukraine or something like that starred Captain America. And had like this
John Hurt, Tilda Swinton. I mean, it's the big cast.
Ed Harris. I mean, it was like there's nothing about this that should have worked at all. And in fact, like, I did not know. All I knew is like, Jason Murphy likes a bunch of these quirky. Let me put it this way: I watched half of the Raid 2. just before Snowpiercer. So in my mind, if you've not seen it, The Raid is a movie that was made in Indonesia, that was made on like $20 in a taco budget and surprised everyone for its visceralness. So I watched a bit of The Raid 2, and it's like, there are fight scenes that are like, oh man, this is really visceral. And then all of a sudden somebody breaks a bottle and you visually watch it stab repeatedly in the throat and all this blood come out. And you're just like, whoa! And so it's like, that's the kind of thing Jason Murphy likes. And he's like, well, here's another one from Korea called Snowpiercer. And the novelty is it's also in the movie theaters. And I'm like, sure, whatever. And I swear it was not until 3/4 through the movie that I was like, who's the Christian Bale guy with the beard that's the main character? And he's like, that's Captain America. And I was like, what? No, wait, what? And then Ed Harris shows up, and all of a sudden it hits me that I'm seeing a stealth major level production. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about, unless you talked about it as I was coming down, what do you think about the novelty, as you said, of simultaneous release? I remember Mark Cuban years ago, when he was doing the HD net and all that, and he had some movie theaters. He envisioned, if you wanted it at home at the same time, you paid $35. Then it goes down gradually. He had like an amazing plan for that, because I found this on iTunes for 99 cents when it first came out. They had a special. And I thought for $1, this was a great movie. It was,
and now it's $15 to buy it, $7 to rent it.
Yeah, it's really high now. So.
If I remember correctly, and somebody in the chat will probably correct me on this, but I believe that this movie made more money in 2 weeks of video on demand than 6 weeks of on-screen releases in theaters. Like it made like 3.
It made more money on demand than it itself made in theaters. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And over 2 weeks of on demand than over 6 weeks of actually in theaters. And again, it's just that the rules are different. This is what Kevin Smith pissed off a lot of people by going on a giant rant at Sundance. Kevin Smith put out Red State, and he said, hey, we're going to have an auction afterwards. So everybody was like, all right, well, we'll show up and watch it. And everybody watched it, and they liked it or didn't like it or whatever. And he said, hey, here's the auction. I'm selling it to me for $1 because whatever you assholes are going to do, you're going to buy this movie, which cost me, I don't know, we'll say $12 million or $4 million to make. You're going to spend $30 million to market it, and then you're going to tell me when it only makes $1 million that somehow it lost money, and I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to take it on the road myself. And in that regard, Snowpiercer has been completely a success story, a financial success story in that regard.
Yeah.
All right, The Shield. I finished up season 2, episodes 12, Breakpoint, episodes 13, Dominoes Falling. Could not have enjoyed these 2 episodes so much differently back to back than any other episodes of The Shield. Breakpoint was a very good procedural episode, but really had me thinking like, yeah, okay, Mackie helping Wagenbach to find the missing child. That's a compelling type of cop story that you wouldn't normally see, and I get that, but this isn't the kind of thing that really draws me in. It's not my kind of thing, but there's just enough of what's going on with Aceveda and the release of the report and the election and the money train that I leave just enough breadcrumbs that at the end of it, I was like, yeah, I want more. This was not enough Shield. This was not the best Shield. And I know that the next one is the season finale and it's going to be amazing. And then I watched Dominoes Falling, which just blows you away. In fact, my only criticism of Dominoes Falling is that they really don't make it believable why Aceveda wins the election, but you don't care because you want that complexity to happen where the plans of the chief fell apart because Aceveda got elected into the primary.
So as far as the money train storyline,
we get to see the money train. The whole money train thing happens.
Okay. So if I remember correctly, and forgive me if I accidentally spoil this for you, but that scene after they finish it and they dump everything on the table.
Yes,
and
that's the final scene of the episode where Vic is late coming in to see them. And they're just kind of standing staring, and he's all happy and looking at the money. And then he looks at their expressions, which are more serious. And then he looks at all that money, and then they just hits him like what they've done, all the pressure that's now on them.
Yes.
And it's like, and that paired with the scene of Wagenbach showing up at the scene of the money train where you've got a dead body now, you've got a homicide, and it's like, oh crap, the best detective in the station, who is partnered with probably the second best detective in the station, is now going to be on Mackie's trail, and his partner, Wims, is in line to be captain, and she wants Mackie to come down. So those two are going to be working together to take Mackie down without knowing they're going to be taking Mackie down. Mackie's got to avoid that. His life's falling apart. Season 3 looks set up to be just amazing.
It's side by side, like working together against each other. I mean, it's like, oh my God. Like, I remember that panning back moment where I was like, wow, like I felt it just as Mackie felt it, where it's just like, this was bigger than we thought. You know, it was all fun and games. And now there's what, $200 million looking in front of us.
I had exactly the same experience because I'm like, what, guys? Why are those guys looking so serious? Then Mackie comes in like, yeah, you should be excited about the money. Like, why is, oh, right. Yeah, that's wow.
That's a lot of money. Oh, dude, I'm so glad to be honest, you could totally decide to stop watching The Shield now because, like, there are great moments ahead, but what you experienced is as good as it gets. And for those at home taking the challenge, if you're not feeling it now, you're never going to feel it, and just let it go. But like, that moment was when I realized what an amazing and precious experience The Shield was.
And I'm of course I'm going to keep watching because I want to find out how that all plays out between Wags and Wims and Aceveda and all of that stuff. And Mackie, of course. The Leftovers, episode 6. Did you watch it?
I did. Did you? Lamarr, are you watching The Leftovers?
No, because I left it over. I stopped like episode 3.
You're over.
I thought
Leftovers.
I thought we were in agreement that we weren't going to watch this.
No. I was going to keep. We were in agreement on our opinions of a couple of those episodes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you were going to keep.
I've been continuing to watch it, and this episode, I loved.
I loved it a lot too. It was really good.
So the story is developing.
No. The characters are developing, however,
exactly.
And you start to understand who they are and what they're going through.
You still have no idea how this event.
Oh, you'll never know. You'll never know. That is flatly stated. Lindelof has said, look, you will never find out what this is.
Oh, then I don't want to watch it. Yeah.
It's a MacGuffin. The entire Rapture or whatever it was is a MacGuffin.
That's disappointing.
I want more connections and cross connections of what happened after it happened, or even leading up to it happening, possibly. But
flashbacks. Right?
They're not doing that much. But I really enjoyed this character study that we have because she was one of the more interesting characters to me. What's her name now?
I don't know. We also got to see an important transformation in her. We got to see simmering rage and frustration. Like in the first act, I didn't understand, why is she obsessed over a stupid badge? But then I realized that this entire show long, you have characters who have lost, and I mean literally lost. Not like they died and you know what happened to them. Like just shit's gone.
You're talking about the conference badge. Yeah.
Yes, she's obsessing over the loss of her conference badge, and she's like irrational. And she gets to this moment, and I love the fact that she takes this side journey, and for a brief moment we see just a hint, just an echo of the joy-filled college student she probably was at some point. You know, the guy who her husband fell in love with before he vanished, and so on. The girl.
Saddest scene in television, or at least a competitor for it, is her buying the groceries and shelving them. And if you haven't seen it, that doesn't make any sense. But do you know what I mean?
Walk me through it, because that didn't stand out to me.
Buying the groceries isn't so bad. It's a little bit sad because, you know, like, she's buying cereal for kids and she doesn't have kids anymore.
Right.
Like, that's kind of sad. But when she comes home and she like takes the cereal out of the cabinet and throws it away.
Yes.
And replaces it with the new cereal, and then does the same thing with a couple of more items. And you see that she's not replacing the paper towels. And there's a flashback to the kids and her taking one of those last paper towels and wiping up a mess with it. And it's like, God, that is heartbreaking.
So we also saw a little bit of a crossover. We heard that like voicemail message from Matt, from
Chris Eccleston's character.
Yeah, from Chris Eccleston. Saw a crossover with Dr. Hugs a lot, and she got a hug
Well, I think that's a significant scene because it proves that he actually does something, right? Because it's not just him fooling the congressperson that we didn't know before. Now it's a main character, and we see the effect of it, whether it's psychological or not.
We see her come to some form of peace, or at least the beginnings of it.
Well, she goes to the grocery store and just buys stuff for her.
Yeah.
She replaces the paper towels. And then she's just like, just bopping along.
I kind of am falling in love with the burgeoning love story between two broken people who have lost and divorced against their will.
That's what's really interesting now, right? Is she still broken? Maybe she doesn't think she is.
Well, I think she's still damaged. I mean, I think she's healing. I think she's in a better place now.
He took her pain, though.
Yeah, no. Okay, fine. Whatever. But the point is, we've seen a lot of pain for 6 full episodes. We've seen, I would say, almost nothing but pain. And this was the episode where we got a taste of healing and possible incoming joy for those two. And I like them both. I like the police chief. I love, that girl. I'm really into it. I don't know. I'm more sold than I've ever been on the show.
I'm fascinated because I love hearing you all explain this, because I guess when I watch movies, I like character development, or TV series mostly. I like the character development, but to me, it has to develop alongside the overall theme of the show. And it seems like if they just drop this whole rapture thing, and that's out the picture, they're never going to talk about it really, and it's just developing these characters. I guess I personally just have a hard time seeing how I would benefit from that. But I really appreciate you all.
Lamarr, look at it this way. This is a movie about post 9/11. We're not obsessed with who did 9/11. We're not obsessed with how they did it. We know there's shit we're not going to know, but we are obsessed. This is a story of the healing. This is the story of 9/11 on a global scale, where every single person was directly touched. Everybody knew someone who they personally lost. It also has echoes, like what happens in a world that is largely based on skepticism and rational thought when something undeniably supernatural happens. And as a result, you see these splintering of all these cult groups that come up out of nowhere. And it's, who are you to say they're wrong in a world where, people vanish overnight? And I don't know. It's to me, this is a show about the aftershocks and the healing, and not a show about what happened, because that's the dead past. Who cares?
Yeah, that's the Maltese Falcon. The Maltese Falcon is not about the Falcon. Maltese Falcon is about the people and the interrelationships of their pursuit. And that's, to me, that's what you have to go into Leftovers with, is I'm not going to get a story about the disappearance. I'm going to get a story about people and how they react to something on that scale. And I think Brian's right that it is a metaphor for a lot of...
To be honest, did you guys watch the guy who did Primer? What was the follow-up? Upstream Color. Did you guys watch Upstream Color?
Nope.
No.
I really liked that movie. It was a supernatural, and I don't want to. I can't talk about it without ruining it, but I'll try to talk in code. If you've seen Upstream Color, there is some amazing hypnosis, supernatural things that happen, but they are not the focus of it, and you get very few answers about how that part works. But it is really the story of two victims of rape coming to each other to heal. And that's what I feel like The Leftovers is. If you've seen Upstream Color, you may, I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, but I feel like there's echoes between the two.
All right, you two want to talk about Europa Report?
Yeah. Oh, have you seen it?
I haven't seen it, no.
Wait, you haven't seen it?
Nope.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. Dude, I'll tell you what, man. The Europa Report reminded me a lot of Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars. There's echoes of, it's a very different story from The Martian, but I loved how much focus there was in the practicality of space travel, and it did a good job of making you genuinely terrified of the black.
Hey, have I seen it?
Yeah, I think I think the part I didn't like initially, Brian, was that. I guess in the beginning, the jumping around of from future things that happen in the future to the past, because it was still it just made it a little confusing the first 20 minutes or so, and then then they settled down and kept pretty much a linear story. But like I said earlier, I think as far as the science, they really made this feel like this thing just took off today, and this is happening. We're watching this happening until the communication the communication goes down. Of course,
all of my complaints are about how flatly it was shot. It felt a little bit like a live stage play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a very
if J.J. Abrams have done this, you would have seen a lot more dynamic shooting and so on. But having said all of that, the content I think was really good. I think they did a good job of foreshadowing that something very bad happened, but also very important, and taking you along for the ride. And I felt like that last 5 seconds paid off. You understood why she did what she did, and you felt proud of everyone to put the science first.
Yeah. No, that's it. The last part was the payoff of the whole movie. It was glamorous. I will say another part, and maybe this is the science part I didn't understand. I don't remember the guy's name, but they're out there fixing the ship, and he had the chemical spill on him. He couldn't go back inside.
Yeah.
So he his cord was cut, and he was drifting off.
It's a cord cutter.
And yeah, he's a cord cutter. I guess the part where I know they're accelerating 125,000 miles an hour, and he's still kind of drifting with the ship, and it made. I guess that's the science part that's confused me. I feel like the ship should have just kind of taken off, but he's still hanging with it for a while, and that's the scientific part.
As I understand it, and there's different ways to do things. For missions to Mars, there's talk about using an ion drive with mild acceleration, and you spend half the time accelerating, and then you flip over, and the rest of the time decelerating. I just assumed in this part that they spent their time accelerating and then a lot of time drifting. That's the way the Apollo astronauts did it on their way to Mars, or I'm sorry, to the moon, was they accelerated for a while, and most of that time was spent drifting. So if somebody was outside, they would just float alongside.
Okay, so in space, when you turn off the engines, you'll still go the same acceleration.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But he was in the ship.
He was outside of it.
But he was in it before?
He was in it before. They were out there trying to fix something.
So his acceleration was the same as the ship while he's in the ship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that was only part. I mean, it was a sad moment, but it was the only part I was a little confused on.
Yeah.
It's just I like that they didn't overdo the whole. I mean, they could have made this a whole alien sci-fi thriller, scary.
Well, the aliens
you didn't get to reveal it until the end, and I really appreciated that.
Well, and plus also like the presence of alien life was not thought of as a good or a bad thing. It was thought of just as an important thing. Like the real bad guy is just what a bitch space travel is in general, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the real enemy,
yeah.
right? Yeah, like just the problems of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's why I'm so excited about the Expanse series, James S. A. Corey's books being changed into television shows, because they, not as much as it sounds like Europa Report does, but they try to make space travel as bad and inconvenient as it actually would be.
Yeah. Well, a little audiobook called The Martian. Highly recommended. Lamarr, have you read The Martian yet?
I haven't. Who one of you wrote that?
I just
is this self promotion?
Nope. I just finished my second reading of it, and it's one of the best audiobooks experience I've ever had. It was so much fun. Cool. It's so great. The opening line is I'm pretty much effed and I'm gonna die, and it's a guy. It's Robinson Crusoe on Mars, basically.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, okay. Andy Weir.
All right. QNX Monkey's saying listening is not reading. Screw you. Listening's better than reading.
We will have that fight later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Sword. We've had that fight a bunch on Sword and Laser, actually.
Oh, what team are you on?
I'm on the, it doesn't matter. If you want to have a semantic debate, go do it somewhere else. I get a lot out of listening to an audiobook. And if you don't want me to call it reading, okay. be politically correct about it.
Screw you. Oh, congratulations. Good for you. You could translate printed symbols into ideas in your mind. We're all very impressed. Meanwhile, some of us are having a one-man play performed for us and being transported to better worlds.
But I don't think it's any better or worse. It's just a different way of assimilating the information.
Yeah.
You know?
I love it. I love audiobooks.
Yeah. All right, that's it for Spoilerin' Time. Thank you all for joining us. We will spoil you again next week, like you deserve.
Yeah.